Welcome to the Minds on a Mission podcast, the podcast where we explore the journeys that challenge us, change us, and chart the best course for our best selves. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music / Audible, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Castbox, Podbean, Buzzsprout. If you think it, I'm probably on it. I'm your host, Samantha Bailey, an entrepreneur and content creator, and today's lovely guest is Rebecca Davis. This is a part where
Hello.
I always say, I wish I had sound effects. I'm going to figure it out one day. How are
Oh,
you
I would
today?
have loved that.
I've tried. I have, like, my mom let me borrow. She has, like, what she would call it? The, like, soundboard where you can add things. I can't seem to figure that out and get it connected to my laptop. So one day I will have sound
Yeah,
effects. One day.
that's
How are you
okay.
today?
I am fine. I am fine. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. This has been a work in progress. We've been talking about it for a while, and I'm happy to have you on and get to know more about you.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Well, for those of us who may not know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, my name is Rebecca Davis. I am a multipreneur, as they say. I am the owner of Tax Time Express Tax and Business Services, Bossed Up Fashions, which is a clothing boutique, and then a newest line that I've started, Rebecca Davis Enterprises. I am pretty much what you see is what you get type of person. I love giving back. I love helping. I'm a people person. I love meeting new people. I love doing new things and just learning new things and just the all around people person.
Awesome. I love that. And I would love to kind of dive deeper into that. But
Okay.
first, I would love to know if we could kind of go back to the beginning and if you could just share with us a little bit about your childhood, what life was like growing up.
Sure. Well, I'm an only child, so everybody always thinks that because I'm an only child, I'm just spoiled rotten. But I was taught with, you work for what you want. You everything is not going to be handed to you. So even as a young child, that's when I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to own a business. So even back then, as a young child, I used to take the things out of my house and set up a little table outside and sell it stuff. And in my mind, I didn't care that it was used, so they shouldn't care that it was used. But
Right.
that's where it all started for me. My grandmother was a big proponent of instilling good in me, like be good to people, treat them how you want to be treated. Don't take people for granted. Don't So that's where I get it from. Like I pretty much wear my heart on my sleeve, and I just love, and it has gotten me hurt before, but once I learned how to navigate it and control it, now I pretty much still the same person, but I just have boundaries now. So
Right.
that's me in a nutshell.
I feel like we have a lot in common just already from like what I've heard. Um so I'll kind of share my thoughts that I had while you're talking
Okay.
and letting us get to know more about you. My first thought was I wish I was an only child. Um, I have one sibling. He's technically a half sibling, but sometimes I'm like, I wish I was an only child. And
And
that
I wish I had siblings.
see, it's like we just got the opposite. It's like, but for me, I just don't have a great relationship with my brother. I've never had a good relationship with him. Um,
Hmm.
which is sad, but yeah, for me, I've just always been like, or I've always thought I wish I had a sister. That's another thing I thought. I'm like, I wish I had a sister because girls are pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I have one sibling. He's technically a half sibling. We have different fathers. And then another thing I was thinking was that I had the very same thought when I was younger, like thinking, I know I'm meant for more, but just not sure what it was. And for me, it was a little bit of a different route. I expressed my creativity through art. So I really thought that I was going to be an artist. And I used to love to draw. But it kind of became a thing where it felt just more of like a hobby versus like something that I would do as a career. So then that's when I started like exploring, and then I came back to that thought of like, I know I'm meant for more. Like I'm gonna do something big. I'm just not sure what it is. And so I started finally a couple years ago after graduating trying to explore, because a lot of people they're in high school, they're like, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna do this. And for me, it was like, I don't think I'm gonna go to college. Like I just don't feel like that's the path I'm going to take. So since then, it's really been about finding myself and like what I want to do. I definitely feel like I figured that all out a lot. I've done a lot of work on trying to figure out what felt like a passion for me, like something I would do. And so that's just kind of what I'm doing now, still focusing on working towards those goals and like my skill set advancing in that way. So that was another thing I was thinking, because I was like, well, I really resonate with that. Like I had the
Oh,
same of being like, wow, I know I'm meant for more, but like what is it? And so
and
just try.
know, sorry, but
No
and
worries.
that's the thing I used to always say growing up. I was like, I just want to change the world. I want to grow up and change the world. So I always say that when people ask me, like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm just a little girl from Oak Cliff that wants to change the world. And, now that I'm grown, I still want to do that. I mean, it's so many people like out here. It's so many people that have so much potential, have so many ideas. They just don't have someone to like help them or push them in that direction. And then everybody thinks, well, I'm not gonna say everybody, but so many people thinks that their dream or whatever it is they want to do cannot come to fruition unless they are wealthy. And like you just have to start somewhere. And that's where I want to be that guide for people, to help them just start somewhere, because you never know, it may take off and you become that millionaire because of where you started, or it may not work, but at least you can say you did try. So it's like I come in contact with people so much, they have so many ideas and so many things going for them. They just don't have the right guidance to push them in that direction to help them to get it started.
I agree with that. And I feel like yeah, my last episode we kind of dove deeper in that, because that's something I very much felt. And I definitely feel like I'm an empath, so when I see people like that, like I feel like it really just makes me sad, like knowing that there are lots of people that have so much potential, but there's so many things. And the biggest thing obviously is like themselves getting in their own way. And um
Exactly.
and we talked a bit more about like beliefs, how beliefs that your parents and stuff or people around you, your community instill on you at a young age, how that really plays a part in a lot of people's lives. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that I agree with, and I definitely feel like a lot of people need that extra help to be able to know what steps to make next, so they can kind of get out of those mindsets.
Exactly. Exactly. Because I'm a believer in just pouring into people, because sometimes, you know, we can say, a lot of people say, oh, well, people never poured into me, or I didn't have that, or whatever. And so I think that coming up, back in when I was younger, my parents, they had other things to worry about. I won't say that I wasn't poured into, because I was, but I was never, even being an only child, I was just not somebody that felt like, um, just give me all the attention, just give me all the attention, just this, that. I was always very independent, and that's where the entrepreneur spirit came in. I was always independent. I was always trying to figure out, what can I do, what's the next big thing that I can do, what is it that I can do to just change the world. And so my mind was always on that. And so as an only child, people always just thought, well, you're lucky, it's just you're the only child, and this and this. And I'm like, I mean, I understand why people thought that, but I guess I wasn't one of those kids that just had to have like a whole bunch of attention. I got attention, but I just didn't have to have it. My goals were to just think of, what am I going to do next? What is it that I can do next? What's the next big thing that I can do?
Right. That's awesome that you were able to have that mindset and not, I feel like a lot of people kind of get stuck. And I was listening to like an audio earlier, like a YouTube video, because that's something I love to do, is like, because I work very long shifts, so I'm allowed to kind of pop in headphones, so I kind of just like listen to videos. But yeah, it was kind of talking about that, like the attention thing of like um a lot of people like not knowing, and this is kind of like a little bit of a side topic, but like not knowing
Yeah.
how to express things that they want and how they feel. So a lot of people look for attention, and that's their way of like trying to get it. Which I kind of related with that with when I was younger because I have a lot of past trauma and that kind of was my outlet. So now like reflecting on it, I'm like, okay, like now I understand it. Like I understand why I was that way.
Mm. Was that what art was for you? Was art at the time like an outlet? Because I always hear that people that start off doing art young or want to be artists or whatever, they started because it's like an outlet for them to kind of release certain things that they're holding in.
Yeah, I definitely felt like art and writing and when I was really younger, reading, but I kind of fell out of that for a while. But I've always loved writing's still the thing that I stick with like every day. I don't really draw or anything as much, but I do like to paint here and there because that still is that feeling of like being able to express myself and kind of it's a time to like rewind and you know what I mean, kind of just breathe because sometimes I'm like I just need a break, like to just relax and just have some time to myself. So yeah, I
Exactly.
still feel like that is, but writing's my favorite out of all of them. I love writing. I love making things cutesy and like adding little drawings on it.
See, I wish I was that creative. Like, I'm not the creative person. Like, I can tell you this is what I want to see or whatever, but I'm not the creative. And I wish I was. Like, I wish I was like the graphics or I can go on and put stuff together. So, a lot of times I can like think it up, but I can't present it out. So, I'm not the creative, but that's why I'm glad I know a lot of people that are because it helps bring the things, especially in my business, to life. Because if I had to draw it, paint it, or make it, you're in trouble.
Right, and that's what I think that's amazing is that like I feel like I mean, I'm younger, so I may not know this and like if it's entirely true, but I feel like before it kind of was a lot less like outsourcing for things. People felt a lot more like they had to do every position within whatever they were doing, running their own business. They had to be all wear all these different hats. And I love that now I'm kind of seeing more people are more okay with outsourcing and realizing like, okay, I don't have to be good at all of these things. Like I just have to be good at these certain things and then outsource the rest of that to other people who are good at those things.
And that is a good point because I was that person. When I started my business, I was that person. Like I did everything. Well, first, like I always say, it was a different time back
Yeah,
then
that's
because it was no really a lot of community or a lot of people coming together to kind of help you or guide you in the business. So a lot of things I got wrong. I had to do it all myself or figure it out. So I didn't even know if I did need to outsource something, like I wouldn't even know who to outsource it to because then people made you feel so terrible about reaching out for help or reaching out for guidance, regardless if you were paying for it or not. It was just the mentality of if I help you, then you might get ahead before I do. So no, if as long as I know you don't know how to do it, I have a leg up on you. And so back then it was so different. But now, it's like I always believe in that now to delegate because my thing is now I'd rather pay to get my time back than spend time trying to figure out when I can't do it in the first place. I'd rather pay to delegate and outsource somebody to do it, especially if they do a good job. And then I can use that time somewhere else.
right.
So yeah.
And I'm thankful that you gave your input on that because that is like kind of what I've noticed, but I'm only 21, so I don't know exactly
Oh yeah, you
what that looks like because I wasn't around for that time period, but that's something that I have noticed just from my own kind of diving into things is that's very much and that's for like a lot of things where just a lot of things weren't acceptable that are acceptable now, which is like I feel grateful to be I feel like I'm in the perfect, like, I don't know what you'd call it, era, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because and it's too I like it because I can talk about a little bit of things that, like, the younger generation doesn't know, the Gen Alpha. So, like, I was talking to someone who's, like, around my mom's age, because my mom's 51, and
Okay.
I was saying, I was like, "Okay, I know I'm 21, but hey, at least I was around for, VHS tapes, and I had one of those old box TVs, the one big old chunky ones." And I'm like, the younger kids now, they would be like, "What is that? I grew up with a smart TV." And I'm like, "See, so I'm kinda I know a little bit."
Exactly. Cause it is like that. Cause like I'm younger, but I'm a grandmother. So I have grandkids that they look at that time as like when you say anything about DVD, I mean video player, they barely know what a DVD player is. But when you say anything about DVR, I mean DVD player or that kind of thing, and they're just
VCR, yeah.
like what is that? Or yeah, what's a VCR? What goes in that? What kind of thing goes in VCR? Did y'all have a what was that big thing? Like my mom, she has one of those TVs because she refuses to get a different kind of TV. So she has one with the big backs, and they always look at it like, why is the TV swollen? They always ask her that
Yeah,
because it's just a different time.
that's how I feel, cause I'm like, I know I'm still young, okay, there's some things that I'm gonna be like, "Alright, I don't know what that's like." But I that's why I say, like, I feel like I grew up in the perfect, kind of time zone because it's like I got to see what it was like before technology really advanced. Cause like,
Exactly.
before I had an iPod Shuffle, like, kids nowadays would be like, "What is that? What's an iPod
Hmm.
Shuffle?" And so it's like I get to kind of have that feeling of like, okay, now I feel old because you guys don't know what that is, and I'm like, I'm only 21. But these kids nowadays is like growing up on the smartphones. Like I didn't get a phone
Yes.
until I was 10, and I had a flip phone, and the kids nowadays would be like, "What's that?" Like,
Yeah, it's amazing how times and like even some of that stuff that you were naming, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it really was. But it's like now things are just so different. And it's like the babies, the kids, like they rely on their phones, like everybody, they rely on their phones for everything. Like it's like if you want to punish a kid or a teenager now, take their phone, take their electronics, their tablets or whatever. And it's like their whole world is turned upside down. So
oh
it's weird how it is a different time now. Like the electronics just kind of rule the world now, seems like.
yeah, and it's like I like it, but I definitely was like that. I feel like when I was in high school, I was way more like that where I had to have my phone attached to my hip at all times. Like I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't have anyone touch my phone. Like and I was yeah, definitely one of those kids because it's like in high school, it's like encouraged. Everyone's, texting on Snapchat or whatever.
Mhm.
You got to see what like the new gossip is or trends and like it's just a lot more. So like now that I've been out of high school for a few years, I definitely noticed I am on my phone a lot, but also not. I'm very situational. Like if I'm spending time with company, I really will not be on my phone. I've really decided that's something that I wanted to be a part of my life because I value spending time with others more now, especially with my grandmother. Like, if I see my grandmother, I used to be on the phone the whole time, like with her, and now I feel bad, even like checking notifications.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is her time. My phone is going down. But then outside of that, like company time, in my head, I'm like, my phone is my business. So I am
Hmm.
on my phone because I'm doing productive things. That's more of like, and I really try to cut out, screen time with like, because Facebook, they have similar to TikTok, they've got like those videos and you get stuck in it.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I notice now, like if notice I start doing that, I'm like, no, shut your phone off because now I'm going in a rabbit hole and I can't let myself do it.
And it happens to me all the time. And it's like I get so mad at myself because I'm like, oh my God, that was just 2 hours of unproduction. I'm not productive at all, because I'll get into one thing and then it turns into another thing and another thing, and then they have the videos just right after. And I'm like that. I have to just turn my phone off or put it on do not disturb. And then it's like something you said about the kids and the phones. I remember, and this was a long time ago, they didn't have all the apps and Snapchats and stuff then, but I want to say at least about probably 8 to 10 years ago, I remember I used to be a substitute teacher. And I was telling somebody this the other day, even then, the principal used to say the kids just stay on their phones. You have to engage them so they won't stay on their phones. And so I was like, oh, I have a trick for that. So I would tell them, if you're on your phones and I take it up, you cannot get it back unless you pay $20. So they would be on their phones and I would take the phones and here they are, here's the $20. Can I have my phone? Like that didn't even stop them. They just paid the money and got the phone back. And I was just like, goodness. So it was, even back then, it was such an addictive thing. And even without the Facebook and Snapchat and all of that, it was just still, I don't know what it was then. It might have been MySpace or whatever. I don't know. But even then, it was still very, very addictive.
Yeah, it's bad, and then with other stuff, like don't even get me started with like vaping in schools and stuff. It's just bad. And I mean, I feel like in ways I'm like, well, I shouldn't be one to talk because I was one of those people. But as someone who has changed, I have not vaped in over 2 years. Very proud of myself. But for me, it was more of like it just becomes something you're accustomed to because a lot of people in school do it, and my friend group did it. So it's one of those things where even if you feel like, oh, I'm like, I don't really think that's for me, you're like, well, all my friends are doing it. So then it just kind of becomes a thing that's like a norm. Like it's just accepted to do that. And so, once I got out of high school, I kind of was reflecting and was like, this is who I want to be, like someone who, does this. And like, nothing against people who do that, but I'm just like, I just was like, I'm young. If I'm going to stop this, I need to stop this now before I get too far into this and really make it a habit of my life. Cause I just was like, I don't want to be, 20, 30 years down the road and possibly have lung problems because I've been doing this. So
Exactly. But was it a situation where if you decided you didn't want to do it with your friends doing it, were they the kind of friends that would be like give you a hard time about it? Or was it not a peer pressure thing? It was just because they were doing it, you did it.
I feel like when I was in high school, it was more of a peer pressure thing. But then obviously when I got out of high school, I still all my friends still did it, and I feel like that was more of a like, "Oh, well, my friends are still doing it." But then
Mm-hmm.
it became a thing of like, I don't have to do it just because my friends are doing it. Like, I don't have to be them. They can do that, and I can also not do it. So kind of became, but it's kind of hard when your friends you do it, and then you're trying to quit, and you're just like, oh, like I'm tempted because I see you doing it. But for me, the only way I was able to quit cold turkey was just reminding myself of all the things I felt while doing it, which was short of breath. My anxiety
Mm-hmm.
was really bad. Um, I felt just kind of more fatigued. So I just would remind myself. And then also, they just don't really taste good. They don't.
Yeah.
They're just not. I mean, they have the flavored ones where they try to get you like, oh, it's fruity, like you'll like this. But I just was always like, no, and remind myself of those things. And so every time I've ever been tempted since then, I'm like, remind yourself of all the reasons why you chose to quit.
And I can imagine how much it cost, because I'm sure I heard it's like a million, multi-million dollar industry. So I can imagine how much it costs to continue to buy it.
Right. Those things are expensive, especially it's like they have ones where you have to buy like cartridges for them. So then you
Mm-hmm.
gotta pay more for the pack, and then it's a whole thing. But I'm so grateful I quit, and I definitely feel a lot better now that I don't do that. So
I bet.
I had a thought, but I can't remember. Yeah, but it's I feel like it's just I'm worried to have kids, honestly. I'll be quite honest.
Really? Well,
With
you know what? Well, speaking, I'm a mother, of course, but I would say if somebody had said that like years ago, I would be like, really, why? But now I can understand that now. In the world we are in now, I can definitely understand that.
That that is my thought process. It's not of the, like, the kids in general, it's where we are and what I know comes with having kids in this time frame.
Mhm.
Because so much has changed, there's so much more access to things, and kids are smart, they're so smart, they pick up on stuff, so I feel like even if I were to try to understand how to, like, block certain things, I feel like they would figure out how to turn it off
Oh,
because
yes.
they're just
It's
so
like they come out knowing electronics almost. So
That's that's how I feel. I make a joke to my mom, it's bad, but I'm like, it's so I tell my mom, I'm like, "It's almost like the kids come out with an iPad attached to their hip when they come out, like,
yeah, because
that's
it's
how
like,
I
how do
feel."
they know how to do so much so young? Like it's almost like it's instilled in them at birth.
Yeah, and it scares me because, you know, kids are, they're so smart, they adapt to things so quickly, and then with how much there's access to, and then just people, I don't know, and then, like, the Gen Alpha, they have, I call it brain rot language. Because the way they speak, I've seen, like, videos on it, like, things their little lingo, I just it really concerns me. I'm just
It
like,
it concerns me too. And imagine trying to learn that in the world, because like I'm a business owner and I do business with, that generation. And so when they message me and I'm just almost like, huh? And it's like totally different. And then I get so confused because I'm like, I get, back in the day where we would just shorten things just to keep from making it so long. So we would just shorten it. I can understand that. But then I look at this lingo and I'm like, it would have been shorter just to say the actual word. The lingo is even long. So I'm just like, what's the purpose of it? But yeah, it's very confusing.
yeah, like, they have ones that I'm like, "Who came up with this? Like, who is your leader?
Exactly.
Who's your leader, and who like, who came up with all this?" Because it scares me, and I see it, and for me too, I'm the same where I think I'm like, "Well, if I'm gonna be like a business person and be have a social presence, and I guess I have to understand some of this stuff
Yeah.
because it's like you've got to understand how to market to certain audiences." But I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, and that's even like the 12-year-olds, like they talk like that, like they say things like skibbity, and I'm just like, what
What
is
does
that?
that mean? Exactly.
And I say,
And I've stopped asking that because sometimes I don't even want to know what it means, but I kind of just look like, like trying to let you know I don't know what you're saying, but because sometimes I don't even want to know what it means. I'm scared to even ask what it means.
me too. I'm just, yeah, that's why I'm just like, oh, they're speaking in brain rot again. I don't know.
That's
That's where I worry because
funny.
I'm like, well, I'm too, like, I'm kind of like, I would say, I don't know. I know we talked a little bit. I said this a little bit before we came on, but like, I love psychology. I love to know kind of certain, like, reasons behind things, which is why I've always been interested in, like, true crime, because I'm always like, oh, like, okay, you get to understand the psychology behind why people do certain things. So
Hmm.
I kind of, like, deep dived, and I told my mom about this, like, the statistics for, younger kids with what, like, the blue light is doing to them and how it's affecting them, and it's just, like, so crazy because they're so, like you said, kind of, like, preset to kind of know these things, and
Hmm.
they're just so quick to learn, and then thinking that so many younger kids are absorbing so much blue light. They're on their phones all the time, and then, that have it so close to their face. And so it talked a lot about having a lot of side effects, with struggles with sleep and having some eating problems, and there was just tons of effects of having an overconsumption of blue light at such a young age. And also to eyesight, it really affects their eyesight, which is
Yes, it
like
does.
scary.
Yep.
And so,
But then they're capitalizing off of that also because I was looking online, matter of fact, just the other day, Amazon, and they have a whole section now for blue light glasses, not only for adults, but even for kids, like to block the light or the block the blue light or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God. So they're even capitalizing off of that.
oh yeah, I mean, and not only in that way, but you got to think of like, I'm a YouTube person. I love watching YouTube. Things like, I don't know if you've heard Mr. Beast, or there's so many channels
Yeah.
that are like Mr. Beast where their target audience is children. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's again another thing where it's endorsing children to be on their phones and to overconsume all of this content and all these different things that really at such a young age they shouldn't be, because they should be doing things that normal children are doing. We're going outside and playing, and like, you know, that those are very vital things for kids. And I feel like now it's kind of pushing kids to not have those interactions, because they're like, I can just be on my phone and I can consume all this content, or play all these games or whatever. And so I feel like it's just really, really not good for these younger kids.
It's not at all. And it is, it's like the screen time is like taking over. And I so respect those parents that do that. They'll just, a lot of my clients, they say they do that with their kids. They'll be like, after a certain time, the screens are going off. You can either go outside or you can do something else, but you're not going to just sit in a tablet for, because like they can sit in that tablet or the phone like 8 to 10 hours at a time. That's like longer than you're at a job, and not have no problem with it until it goes dead, and then they'll do something else until it charges up, and then there's another 3 4 hours at a time. I just don't see, like, and that's how times are just so different. And that's why I said, like, having a kid now in this time, and it's just, oh, it's just scary.
Right. And then it's like kind of like where you're over consuming caffeine stuff, right? When you don't, either like you're having a lack of sleep, or you're kind of coming down from the caffeine high, like you become very reactive, like you're very, and that's how I feel with the phones. It's like if their
Mm-hmm.
phones are dying, whatever, they're becoming very aggressive and stuff.
Yep.
And it's like also too, they're losing sleep because I'm sure a lot of them stay up late, on their phones, and then with all the blue light and everything. So it's like they've had such a combination of things that are like affecting their health.
Mm-hmm.
So it's scary. And I I've definitely thought a lot about like what I'm gonna do when I have kids. And luckily I have some experience because I worked at a daycare for a couple years. So
Okay.
like so like I kind of understand, like, you can't just not give it to them at all, because the
Mm-hmm.
more you take something away from them, the more they're going to want it, the more they're going to want to
Yeah.
rebel against you. So it's more of like, okay, I'm accepting that they're going to get an amount of screen time, but they're not going to be able to have access to it all day. And so kind of
Mm-hmm.
like breaking it up. Like, I watched my nephew a couple months ago, and he has a tablet. I'm like, "You're 3, why do you have a tablet?" But I'm like, I'm not the mom. So,
Yeah.
but I just was like, "Okay, you get it for X amount of time. I'm gonna take it away for this amount of time," and kind of like incrementing. So I'll be like, "Okay," and then it's also too like a little game, because I set up a timer so he can see it. Like, okay, so when this says
He
0,
knows.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of reinforces him to be like, okay, so I just need to keep myself busy while I wait for that timer to say 0. And so I made him, I'm like, you're gonna play with toys with your brother until that goes off. So it's kind of like knowing, like, okay, gotta have a balance, because if you give them
That's a
none, they're
good
like,
balance.
right. The scary thing too is like you can't be like, oh well, I don't want them to have it all, because the issue is going to school. All my friends have phones or whatever. Why can't I be on it? So then it just creates issues. So it's like you gotta accept, like, okay, I need to give them a little bit at least. Like, give them a balance of like, okay, you get it for this amount of time, then you need to do something else.
Yeah. Because times are just different. Like, even with the phones at the young age, it's just the thing now to where it's just what it is. And I get it because a lot of parents, they have so much going on and they figure, well, if I know if I give them the tablet, they're gonna be sitting down in one spot in the tablet and I can do what I need to do. But then it's just becoming so excessive, like you said, when they're wanting to be in it 8 to 10 hours or 12 hours and sneaking it up under the pillow while they're asleep because they're supposed to be asleep, but they're on the tablet and just not ever. Because what worries me is like, I know my grandkids, like, unless it's time to eat or whatever, or I say get off of it, like it's no done time for them unless they have to get off of it. Like it's like no time where they just say, oh, you know what, I've been on here long enough, let me just do something different. That time just never comes unless make it come. But it's just scary. It's just weird to me how things are just so different now than what they were back in the past.
Right. And I feel like too, I've noticed like there's been a lot of things since COVID that's really, kind of also excelled that because um I've noticed that's been a thing, like, especially since COVID, it's like a lot of parents are really using that as a crutch, having the
Mhm.
screen time. And so it just, and especially I feel like it's something where it's hard because I had a parent where they were trying to decrease the nap time, and I was like, okay, like I wanted to understand, like, okay, what's going on? Like, what do you feel like needs help? And then they explained to me that they let their daughter stay up past 10 o'clock and watch Frozen, and so I was like, maybe that's why she's not going down is because you're allowing her because again, like you said, if you're not gonna take it away, they're just gonna continue to watch it. Like, they'll just watch it
Mhm.
for hours, and so I'm just like, "Alright, well, maybe you should set, like, a time of, like, okay, this is when we're cutting you off," which I know sometimes it's hard because, like, I know some parents, it's like, "Oh, but I just can't say no, like, I just want."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I get that, but you've gotta create a balance because kids are
Mhm.
smart, they'll know how to get what they want out of you, and if you don't,
Mhm.
have that schedule for them, they're gonna do whatever."
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. So, we talked a bit about childhood, and I'm thank you for kind of getting into me with that because that's something that I very much am, like, interested in, is, like, how things are, especially with kids nowadays. It's definitely a very important topic to kind of discuss what's going on and, like, how to move forward, especially as a parent with, electronics.
Yes, because it's I just keep saying that it's totally, times are just totally different now. And like even trying to punish them and take those phones and electronics away, it's just like just the tantrums that come with that, just how obsessed they are with those gadgets. It's just really scary.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's what I meant. They're, like, so reactive. The same thing with, like, caffeine. It's like they're just so attached that when you're like, "Okay, no, like, you need to take a break from it," it just becomes a whole issue. And so
Exactly.
that's why too, though, I feel like over time, if they get used to being like, "Okay, I know at this time, this is when I am done with, having access to my phone or whatever," I feel like that kind of will go down, but definitely when you first start, kind of implementing that, it's like, oh, it's I'm sure it's not fun to deal with.
Oh yeah, no, it's not.
Like,
It's not at
"Sorry."
all.
So, can you tell us a little bit about kind of what high school and did you go to college at all?
Yes, I did. I went to high school. Well, I went to two high schools. I went to Justin F. Kimball in Dallas, and I also went to Franklin D. Roosevelt in Dallas, where I graduated from. And shortly after I graduated, I was going to go to a out of state college, but I ended up going locally to community college. Went there, got an associate's. Then I went to two colleges, Colorado State University. I did that online for a while. Back when I started going to college, it was like different, totally different because they allowed you to just change whatever whenever. So I was so many different things before I realized what I wanted to do. Um, And so at the time I was having to, my mom was paying for it. And so it was just like, I was just changing. And so I thought I wanted to be a teacher. Then I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Then I thought I wanted to be, I went through so many things. And so when I finally decided that business is the route that I wanted to go, I had all of these like excess classes that I had taken that was not going to really benefit the business. So the business side, because the credits didn't match that degree. So then I decided to start over in that field in business. So I had to start taking those classes over. It was like a lot. Like I just kept not knowing what I wanted to do. So then when I finally got serious in it, and by this time I had spent so much on loans and all of this stuff, to where then when I finally got serious and realized that I wanted to hone in and get my degree, I had to pay for it myself at that point because I had done ran and used up everything else, changing my mind so much. So I started that degree. Like I said, I got an associate's. I started working on my bachelor's. I didn't finish that. So by then, I was a mom. And although I had the support and help, I just never was that type to feel like putting myself first. I always wanted to make sure my son and my family was good. So it's like, just like women, like we do all the time, we always do what we have to do and not what we want to do. So that was that for me. I just like, well, I'll just put that on the back burner and it's fine. I'll just go back to it later. My son needs me and my family needs me. So I'll just do that. And so fast forward years after, I went back and I started working on it again. And then, of course, life got in the way then. So then I put it on the back burner again. And it's like I have probably most of the credits now. I think probably I could probably finish like 12 credits and I could finish that degree. And I think now that I'm so settled and, I have time, I have been thinking about going back and finishing it. And then I was like, but for what? But then it's like, I feel like all of that time that I did put into it or whatever will be for nothing if I don't. So that's where I am with it now.
I get that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely understand like wanting to go back to finish that just. And
Just
I
to
mean,
have it.
right. Um yeah, I feel like that would be good idea, but if you don't end up going back, I would understand that too. Because I mean, that's why I didn't go to college because I really was like, "Oh, I really didn't like school. Like, am I really gonna go to college and then spend at least a couple more years with, like, regular school?" I was just like, "Nah." Um, and then I was kind of similar where I was very back and forth because with, where I was when I graduated, it was during COVID, so they had the thing in my state where you could get, go to community college for free.
Mm.
So, I really was like, "Oh, I think Imma utilize that," and so I'm when I tell you I've enrolled and then I dropped out, like, I was like, "No, I'm just not gonna do it," and then I've enrolled and it was the same thing where I was like, "Oh, Imma do it for business," and then it finally became a thing of like, "But I don't have to," because in business, you don't technically have to have a degree to, like, have your own business or anything. So then it finally was like, if I don't have to, then I'm not going to. So I just was like
Exactly.
I
Like
finally
who's
was
gonna make
like
me?
right. So I finally just was like, "No, I would rather do self-learning than go to college because then I could choose what things I wanted to focus on instead of having them tell me what to focus on." And so that was kind of but that I'm stubborn, like I said, I didn't like school. I felt like it was a bit of a struggle for me to graduate. Luckily, thankfully I did and I got myself together, but I really was not a fan of high school. I felt like it was a really low period for me. Um and so I finally just was like, no, if I feel like if I'm having so much back and forth, it's a sign to me that if I'm not convinced that I should go, then I'm not going to. So
Yeah. And then for me, it's like I look back at like these other countries and states and so forth and how they do schools and like you said, you were able to go to community college for free, and most other states and areas are like that. Like I feel like now as an adult, I look back and I was like, here in Texas, it just seemed like school was only encouraged so you can run up loans and like just get in all this debt. And like everybody that like I talk to, when I talk to people from other states and countries now and so forth, and it's like that is not a thing there. Like most places, if you're going to community college, like they allow you to go without running up all those loans and all of that. And that was the one thing I hated about Texas is that they will take advantage of 17 and 18-year-olds getting out of high school and allow them to run up all of this debt, knowing that once they finish, that's gonna be like something that's just stuck with them, all these hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, no relief, no anything. And now that's just stuck with them. And I feel like that's something that they should do a better job of teaching, like even if it's in high school, like teaching that how, even though it's so easy for you to get it, even with getting out of school, getting in debt, like when they give high schoolers or people going into college all these credit cards and all these loans and all this stuff, and they don't teach them the fiscal responsibility behind that until it's too late, until they're facing 200 some $1,000s of debt as a junior in college. I don't like the way that's handled.
Right. And I feel like I have that similar thought, but like I have a business loan and I feel the same way because this was like over a year ago and I was young and naive. I mean, obviously I'm still young, but like I don't I but like I feel like in this last it's been over a year. So in this year plus I've learned so much since then. And so I just had the thought of like, wow, I really wish I knew what I know now before because I would
Hmm.
have never gotten that loan. And so now I have that same thing where I'm stuck paying for something that didn't end up working out because I didn't know
Exactly.
beforehand, oh, this is what you should look at when you get a loan. This is things you should pay attention to. Like I didn't understand that. Me and my friend, we, had similar dreams and we were just like, wow, this sounds like a great opportunity. And I felt like because we were young and naive that the company we got the loan from took advantage of that because
Hmm.
there was a lot of things that we didn't know that we would have to pay for alongside the loan in order for the business to actually work, which we did not have that money, nor did we know that we would have to pay for those things. And so, since reflecting, it's like I feel like I'm like, they definitely took advantage of the fact that we were young, we didn't know what we were doing, we didn't know, all these other things that come along with starting a business and having this loan, what to look for. So I had the same thought. I'm
Exactly.
like, now I'm
And
stuck with
see, and I don't like that. I don't like that you don't know that already of what to look for to prevent you from getting into something like that. And again, I think that should be put into schools, even if it's as a like an elective or something. I just think that taxes, finance, taxes, loans, debt, all of that should be pushed in schools, in high school.
right. And I had somewhere I went to two high schools. I went to both of them I went to for 2 years. And so the second high school I went to, I was lucky enough that there they had an economics class. So I learned a little bit, like I learned how to do my own taxes and I've been doing my own taxes since I was 17 because I took that chose to have that class. And so I'm grateful that they had that, but not a lot of schools had that. And the school I had before, they didn't have economics. And so it's like I wish, like you said, like there were a lot more classes like that where they teach you how to manage your money and how to do your own taxes. And like you said, how to know what to look for if you decide to have a loan or kind of making people fully aware of the lifelong effects of going to college. You're going to be stuck, like you said, with that debt. And I feel like a lot of people, because we're young, we don't really think of those things. We're just, and it's like we're instilled to think, oh, I have to go to college. I have to do this.
Exactly.
So it's like I just, like you said, wish that they taught us that in high school, and that it wasn't so pushed to go to college. Like, I wish it didn't feel like something that was so forced on people, because I feel like a lot of people feel like that's the only route, because that's what, a lot of people grow up with their beliefs is like, you have to go to school, you have to go to college, then after you have to get, traditional job, and then it's like I feel like it kind of puts people in a box.
It does, because I know so many people, and this is not a dig, it's just reality, that
Yeah.
have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans because they went to college and then they got this degree and they got this degree and they have all this student loans and this and that. And now they're a manager at Staples, and nothing wrong with managers at Staples, but I'm just saying, you look back on all of that debt that you've incurred, and then it's not a guarantee that you're going to even get out. And because a lot of times it's not in their control that they're the manager at Staples. It's just the way that the cards were dealt, So you do all of that, run up all that debt and get out, and then you try to go and get a job in that field, and it's like, well, you're not qualified enough, or we can only give you entry level pay, or we're not hiring. So then it's like you look back at all of that debt, and it's like, and you still can't just necessarily go get something in that field anyway. So, and it's good that you said that your economics class taught taxes, because back when I was taking economics, it didn't. I did take economics in high school, but it didn't teach anything about taxes. I mean, it might have talked about like the tax rate or whatever, but it didn't teach you how to do it. And that's something that I've been trying to get my foot into with talking to the local community college here where I'm from, is about coming in and allowing somebody like me to talk to kids about the taxes. And when they start working, do not go exempt, let them take out taxes during the year so you're not on at the end of the year, that kind of stuff that school is not teaching them, with doing their taxes and all of that debt and loans and interest rates and all of that. Because once they get out and they feel like, just like I did, oh, well, they're giving it to me, so it must be right, it must be okay because they're allowing me to have it. And then by the time they realize that, oh, I wasn't supposed to do it this way, or this is too much, or I owe so much, at that point it's too late then. So yes, I definitely wish that it was more put in schools more to where they can understand, the seriousness of it, so that they're not caught up in that once they get out of school.
Right. And like it's not anyone's fault of like, being stuck, cuz like again, it's like you don't really look at those things when you're younger, and then again too when you're not taught that in school, which is why like I agree so much, because it's a fact of like I'm like I'm not saying, oh, don't go to college. I'm just saying that I feel like a lot of times, because we're not told, okay, this is what to expect later on once you're done college. This is how you manage the debt, and this is how you paid off. And these are, like, I feel like that's where the issue is because we're not being told, okay, this is what happens afterwards. This is how you manage it. And that's where a lot of people don't know where to go after that. And it's, moving forward in their career, because it becomes a paralyzing thing of like, oh, now I have all this
Mhm.
debt. What do I do? And then, with the job issue, and especially like something I mentioned is it's really hard to get jobs. There's a lot of people saying that they have graduated from college, they have multiple degrees, and they can't find a job. They're having such a hard time. And one of the biggest issues is because of AI. A lot of employers are using AI, and so now this AI is searching for keywords within people's resumes. And so a lot of people don't know, okay, this is what I need to have in this in order for the
Mhm.
AI to recognize, oh, I'm qualified for this position based off things I have in my resume. So then a lot of people aren't getting picked for those jobs because they're not having the qualifying words within the resume. And so
Exactly.
it's making it even harder. So it's like that's just an additional thing that people have to learn and have to then it's crazy because then for each one, you have to change it because you have to have the keywords for each position. And so it's just making it even harder for people to get jobs now, especially with multiple degrees. It's like you could have all that and then still having such a hard time because of all this technology.
Exactly, because it's no person, and several of my clients who are like human resources, like department heads, have told me that, like, it's sad, but it's true. It's not a person that's looking over those anymore. You're right. It is a system, and just the system is set up to look for certain words, and you can be the most qualified candidate and just don't have that word in your resume and get picked over because you don't have
Yes.
that word. And I just it's just scary. And you're right. And then so people can't find jobs in their field or whatever, so they need a job and they have to resort to other types of jobs because of that. So I get it.
Right, and then it's just adding an extra layer of stress, and then it's making you feel like, "Oh, I've got all this debt and I don't know how to figure it out," and then also, "I can't find a job. I've done all this work to work towards my career, but now it's starting to feel like it's amounted to nothing and it's caused me more stress than it's done good because I can't find a job and I'm stuck with all this debt." And so it's making it a lot harder for people to be able to move forward, and it's making a lot of people feel limited and like they're just stuck in, a certain path because of all these circumstances. But it's really of like just being taught these things. It's a lack of being taught, and then, a lack of teaching of things of AI, because again, that is a key thing with these jobs is you need to know how to have those keywords for the AI to pick up. So that's another
But
thing I feel like should be taught.
yeah. And then the downfall to that is that now they're saying that the AI is saying they're not accepting the resume because it sounds AI. Like, because they since AI was used. And I'm like, how does that work? If you're using AI to vet the resume, so that just seems hypocritical to me. You're using AI
Mm.
to vet the resume, but then you want to ding the person for using AI to create the resume. So it's just like, that's weird to me.
I've got advice on that, and this is for my own because I personally love utilizing it for several reasons. I'm one of the people
Mhm.
where you can't run away from it. You got to face it. You got to know how it works because it's just going to keep
It's
advancing.
not going anywhere. Exactly.
Exactly. So I'm one of those people where I'm like, okay, you can't escape it. It's going to be here. It's going to stay here. So I need to figure out how I'm going to use this and how to understand it because the more it advances, the harder it's going to be to stay with time. So tips for that where okay, this sounds AI like. My best advice is write it out. Okay, write out how you would say, okay, write out, okay, this is what I want. All right. Ask ChatGPT, okay, so I'm applying for this position. What are keywords that I need to have in my resume? Okay. Then you ask that, say, okay, this is the resume I have. Change this to have the keywords that need to be within this resume and use human like nuances. Make sure, and that's what you have to write. So you have to tell it like use human like
Mm.
nuances. Make it sure it does not sound AI, and just tell it certain things. There's certain things that kind of flags it as AI. You'll kind of be able to understand that, and just make sure that it doesn't have certain things that would set that off. But usually, if you say like use human like nuances, it will most of the case make it sound in a way that wouldn't sound like it's AI. But for me, I always proofread everything. Don't just think, oh, because I said that, it's gonna be perfect. If you read it and you feel like, okay, maybe this would be flagged as AI, ask it to change it. That's what I do. I always kind of do that because sometimes I'm like, I don't have time to like write out a description for something, whatever. So that's kind of like what I've done before.
Oh, that's a good tip. That's a really good tip.
Thank you. And I know
Yeah.
we're kind of running at the hour mark. Um, but I've had such a good time tonight.
Me too.
I appreciate you coming on and getting to chat with me. And yeah, definitely, if anyone's like, likes to talk about AI or anything like that, I definitely am someone that could go on and on about like how I use it and things like that.
Well, I might reach out to you to come and do a little mini session with my audience. That would be a good topic.
Yeah, I could do that. And I definitely have like we could kind of get together and formulate what things would be good to talk about. Because I do know quite a bit. I mean, I created this whole podcast using ChatGPT. So
Cool.
I I definitely use it a lot, and that's why I pay for the plus version because you only get like I forget how many it is, but it's like 5 or something searches with the free plan. I
Mm-hmm.
pay for the plus because I use it for everything. If I'm like, "Oh, I need to create a plan for this," Imma ask it to do that. Imma tell it, "This is what I want, this is what I don't want," and so that's one of my things I do every day is play around with
I
it.
love it. Because once you get that prompting down, I think that's a game changer. So yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to chat. And also, too, I talked about this a little bit with my last guest, but if you ever wanted to do like a follow up episode, because I know some people probably are interested, like maybe in 6 months' time where you're at, kind of what's going on, would love
Sure.
to do that as well.
Sure, I would love that. And I have your info, so I would definitely reach out for that. Yeah, I would love that. Because by then, I might have changed the world, so I want y'all to know that.
Yes, you're definitely making great steps towards it. And too, with, I'm not, like you said, um, you're definitely think about possibly going back and probably finishing that up. So, I think that would be kind of cool to see, your progress with that. And like I said, if too
Yeah.
you're like, oh heck, like I just don't even want to do it, I wouldn't blame you because
Yep.
school is not my thing. But all right, well, I thank you for coming on. And
It's
just
my
before we
pleasure.
hop off, I just would like to ask if people wanted to reach out to you, what are the best ways to find you?
Sure. So I'm on social media as Rebecca Davis. My business is Tax Time with a Y. I don't know if y'all could see it. Oh, this way. Time with a Y. Tax Time Express Tax and Business Services on all platforms. And I'm on social media as Rebecca Davis. I have red and white on because I know it's a lot of Rebecca Davises, but I have red and white on in the picture. And if anybody just wants to reach out, say hi, ask tax tips, business tips, whatever, I'm there.
And I will have all of this linked, but I always love to have us verbally say it for those, you know, just in case they
Exactly.
prefer that way. Especially too because like for me, I have so many different things that I'm on that I
Yeah,
like to kind of share. Like, okay, this is the best way to reach me if you really wanted to reach out. Um,
exactly.
so as for the podcast, I mentioned in the beginning, but I'm almost on pretty much everything. I feel like every time I say it, I'm just like, yeah, it's a long list, but yeah, we're
I'm
still
everywhere.
yeah. I mean, pretty much. The only thing that I really don't have yet for the podcast is TikTok, but I have talked a little bit about how that is going to be happening soon because I'm going to start posting clips and I'll post those on Facebook and probably Instagram and YouTube as well. But I will be having a TikTok set up for this. I've just been getting some clips set up, so kind of still
Oh,
working.
that's gonna be good.
Yeah, because I've had a couple people recently saying, that that's something they would be interested in because sometimes, people don't have the hour to watch the episode and they just kind of want to see the highlights of the episode. So
Because that's what we are now. We're in a microwave world now. Everything needs to be fast, 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 fast. So I
for
get it.
me, for me, I'm the opposite. I love podcasts, like long form content and just like
Hmm.
putting it on and doing something. But I get
Exactly. That's me.
right. But I get some people they like that shorter, especially if there's like tips and stuff, like just having that in a shorter form. Completely understand. So I'm working on that for you guys. And if you wanted to reach out to me personally, you can reach out to me at Samantha Bailey on Facebook. Um, it's I was trying to think of like my picture, like to describe it so people know which one, but it's just a picture of like me wearing makeup outside. So I don't know if that's really helpful, but I'm like it's a picture of me. But if you're watching it, then you'll know what I look like.
Yeah.
Um, And then if you wanted to reach out to me, the best way is on Messenger. That is usually the best route to get a hold of me. I'm on Messenger. Whenever I have the time, I'm usually on there answering messages. So you guys can reach out to me on there. And I forgot to mention this, I think, the last episode, but we had Laurel, or I forget how to say her last name, but we had Laurel a couple weeks ago, and she had made a code for you guys. So I just wanted to, bring that up again in case if you guys wanted to utilize that, because she took the time to make it for us. So I really appreciate it. But if you go to, and I'll have it linked with this, there's a website. It's like the Business Growth Bootcamp. Use code MISSION to get $400 off her Business Growth Bootcamp. And there you guys got a lot of access to her and her community, and she's got a 12-step course for you guys. So just wanted to mention that just because, like I said, she made the time to make that for you guys. So definitely utilize the resources. So it would be $97 total for the 12-step course and to get access to her community. So just want to mention that, and we thank you guys for coming on with us tonight, getting to know more about Rebecca, and I appreciate you coming on and just letting us get a chance to kind of talk with you and pick your brain for a little bit.
Oh, no problem at all. I enjoyed it, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, we thank you guys, and we hope you have a good Friday night and a good weekend. And I will see you guys on Monday for our next episode.
Bye bye.